Welcome, everybody, to Straight Shoot, a wrestling podcast. I'm one half of your host, Santi, and you're going to hear a familiar voice, but not as familiar as Steve, because we have a guest today, as we have Steve over in the UK somewhere lost, waiting for Clash at the Castle. Kevin, how are you, my friend?
Man, I am good. I just picture Steve like a little kid at the airport, just looking for his bags and just lost and completely out of his mind. But anyway, that's just a friendly rib. Love Steve. Steve, hope you have a safe trip. But while you're gone, keep your seat warm. Santi, I've never got to do this with you before. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I believe that this is your third or fourth time on the podcast.
Yes, this is number 4.
Yeah, but never with me, right?
Nope, I'm free with Steve, and I've always made the joke I'm going to be the first 5-time. And we're one step closer.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, you've been a guest here 3 times, but your experience has been with Robin. Now you get Batman, the real draw of Straight Shooter Wrestling Podcast. Santi Zap, twitch.tv/Santi Zap, link in the description below. But Kevin, let's chat a little bit of wrestling today. So today on the docket, we're going to shoot the shit a little bit about what's been going on in the world of professional wrestling, but really the topic of the show today is going to be Clash at the Castle. We're going to give predictions, thoughts, maybe talk a little bit about some rumors that have been going on. But Kevin, I want to lob this one up for you. What is your favorite thing going on in the world of professional wrestling today?
I really like how Triple H has taken this real hands-on approach ever since becoming head of creative. We've seen the return of a lot of people, some that we didn't think we were going to see back in WWE. Personally, for me, as most of you know if you watch my channel, I'm big friends with AJ Francis, aka Top Dollar. I was very happy for him. But as a fan, I marked out so hard for Karrion Kross. I've always loved Karrion Kross, always loved his work. Thought he was a phenomenal big man wrestler. So when we started to see these people come back, it really excited me we almost had that feeling of back in the Attitude Era when we didn't know what was going to happen. Literally anything was on the table and nothing was on the table at the same time. Aside from that, it's got to be the Dexter Lumis storyline. They've really hooked me with this thing, man, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But once again, that falls under the Triple H umbrella. So just the hands-on approach he's taken and not so much like sitting back like, okay, we're going to let these things iron themselves out. He's more like, no, we're going to put the iron to the table. We're going to fix these things, and we're going to listen to the fans. And I'm just really excited for the direction that it's going and to see where it's going to continue to go.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on a couple of things that you mentioned there. The Dexter Lumis stuff is what's got me shockingly the most hooked. And I'm not necessarily certain that it's Dexter Lumis himself and his work that's got me hooked, but I think it's the production changes Absolutely. In WWE and the way that they've been putting this storyline as this marquee event where, like, you're just every match you're just sort of wondering, like, is this the match where he appears? Is this the backstage segment that he appears? And these were little nuances that were missing during the Vince McMahon era. Like Steve and I were talking about something as simple as 2 weeks ago when Monday Night Raw started, they did the pyro. And then, but it was smaller pyro. And then you had Seth Rollins and Riddle start brawling, right? And then the show started with the real pyro. It's like those little subtle nuances that got me that are getting me more invested. The change in a backstage segments just that seem to actually matter and impact the storyline. But Kevin, I got to tell you that my favorite thing going on right now with wrestling in the Triple H regime is the acknowledgement of the past. With Vince McMahon, there's no such thing as last week. Right? If it didn't happen this week, it doesn't matter. But with Triple H, let me give you the example of Johnny Gargano. What is the first thing that he does when he grabs the mic? Hi, I'm Johnny Gargano. You might know me from NXT, former NXT champion, North American champion, and I won the tag team championships in this very building. Now we have the Drew McIntyre stuff, acknowledging the 3MB days, acknowledging the chosen one. These are things that I might be wrong in saying this, and I'd like to get your opinion. I've always sort of felt that WWE on the main roster sort of treated us like idiots. Like we didn't know, we didn't know that this person mattered in NXT, or that this person has a history in the Indies, and they just completely erase that rich history and put somebody in front of us and make us pretend like they're brand new. Butch, as an example, right? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Just to piggyback off what you said about acknowledging the past, one thing that I really, really enjoyed as far as them acknowledging the past is when they were doing the United States Championship match and they showed the former champions. They had Tommaso Ciampa with the Harley race robe. This past week on NXT, you had the former champions come and kind of pep talk the current champions. I thought things like that were absolutely incredible. And we spent a good, hour and a half just talking about it on Twitch when I was live over there. It's just so cool to see it. As far as, feeling like it was insulting the fans, I completely agree. This is always the argument that I make, and you bring up Butch, which I think is a phenomenal point, because that's always where I go with it. When you look at it, everybody's like, oh, if he would have been named Butch from the start, nobody would have a problem. I don't think the issue is with what name came first. Mm-hmm. I think it's the fact that we spent so much time watching him in NXT that we've come to know Pete Dunne, and now you're treating us like we don't know this is the same guy. Like we don't watch NXT, and then when you take it a step further, you have a guy like Pat McAfee on commentary. Pat McAfee was in a stable with Pete Dunne on NXT, where we called him Pete Dunne for 3 months. And now he's on commentary calling the same guy Butch. It makes no sense. I honestly felt the same way you did. It was an insult to the fans' intelligence.
Yeah, and you know what, like, I am not of the mind, because I think there's a lot of fans that say, like, you shouldn't change a wrestler's name. You absolutely should. Do you really want Batista to still be the Leviathan, or John Cena to be the prototype? Like, you need to change wrestlers' names from time to time, and there are subtle changes that I'm okay with. Antonio Cesaro going to Cesaro. I'm okay with Austin Theory going to Theory. That doesn't change, and that doesn't really insult the intelligence of the fan. But completely repackaging Butch, like you said, and completely ignoring the fact that Pat McAfee has a history with this guy, I thought was completely silly. But name changes can be super awesome. Like I love the change from Wade Barrett to Bad News Barrett. Like it works when it's done well. And it works in situations where you aren't completely scrapping and destroying the past. There's such phenomenal examples of it. Ron Simmons to Farouk, Rocky Maivia to The Rock, stunning Steve Austin to Stone Cold Steve Austin. So the argument that changing names is
Paul Levesque to Triple H.
Bingo. Like, so the argument that changing names is a bad idea is wrong. It's the context in which the name and the repackaging happens, right? So like, I want to ask you this one, because this one I've been, since we're talking repackaging and renamings, because this one wasn't a repackaging, it was just a renaming. What did you think of when they went from Walter to Gunther?
Once again, I feel like they're ignoring everything that this man did. I feel like they were ignoring everything that we've come to love. It's not so much the name, and I think Walter, Gunther, whatever you want to call him, to each their own. I think he said it best when he was interviewed about it, and he said, if Gunther came first and Walter came second, people would act the exact same way. I really came to love Walter. I really came to love the things that he did, the style of wrestling. I believe Walter is one of those guys who would thrive in any era of wrestling. If we had Harley Race in his prime, I think it'd be a phenomenal match with Walter. And I honestly felt like this character that I grew to know and love, they were kind of telling me, okay, forget all that and now pay attention to what he's doing now. Well, I love that. I want to look at that. So I just felt like they were trying to separate me from what we all come to love about him.
Yeah. I think that Vince McMahon era, I can't remember who it was. I was listening to a podcast, and I think one of the biggest differentiators is that right now the WWE feels like a wrestling company. And
Yes.
a couple months ago during the Vince McMahon era, it wasn't so much a sports entertainment or wrestling company. It was a company about intellectual property, right? Being able to market Gunther, and so that Gunther can't take that name elsewhere, right? So at that point, you're not presenting the wrestler, you're presenting the intellectual property of the WWE. It's the same thing from going from Pete Dunne to Butch. But now it seems that, this idea of going Disney and focusing on intellectual properties is right now it seems to be out the window. And now there's a refocus on entertaining fans with in-ring work, whether you want to call it wrestling or sports entertainment. I don't care. I think those terms really are interchangeable. At the end of the day, this isn't a real sport that people should be betting on. It is athleticism 100%. But absolutely. When I qualify a sport, I was like, is the outcome predetermined? And can you gamble on it? To me, are the most important two things as to what is a sport and what isn't. So
I mean, you can gamble on it, doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah, I'm already grimacing at all the money I'm going to lose with NFL season around the corner.
So excited, man. I'm so. Bro, one of the belts that I have, I know this isn't about belts, but I got my Baltimore Ravens championship ready. I named my son after a Baltimore Raven. I'm so ready for NFL.
Oh, dude, that's what Baltimore Ravens player is your son named after?
I named my son Tucker after Justin Tucker.
Justin Tucker. Nice.
My son's name is Tucker.
Nice, dude. I love that. That's fantastic.
Completely taken from Justin Tucker, 100%. There is no other reason other than the most accurate, most point-scoring, most legendary kicker in NFL history is named Justin Tucker. There's a Tucker jersey on my chair.
I mean, I can kind of relate. It's not I don't have a kid, but my dog is named Dwayne the Dog Johnson, so I totally I can relate. All right, well, let's jump into the topic of the show, folks. We are a couple of days away from Clash at the Castle. The first pay-per-view that I think we can confidently say is fully booked and fully realized by Triple H, right? Yes, this was announced, and we knew this was going to be McIntyre versus Roman Reigns before Vince McMahon stepped down. But the build-up to that feud didn't begin until after SummerSlam. So this, I feel like we can confidently say, is the first full Triple H pay-per-view, and with that comes a lot of expectations,
very much
potentially a lot of disappointment if it doesn't meet the expectations. So I'm a little concerned for the pay-per-view because of the high expectations that the internet wrestling community has put in place. Now, mind you, I've always said that the internet wrestling community, they're loud, but they're a minority. But it's a very, very loud minority. Yes. So we're going to be focusing here on talking a little bit about some of the predictions, some of the rumor mills. But Kevin, right now, if we're ranking things from cold to piping hot, where are you landing right now with the build up to this pay-per-view?
I think what they've been able to do is capture a lot of interest with this pay-per-view. I think, as you said, the first pay-per-view fully under Triple H, I think, has some excitement to it. But like you said, there's also a very big downside to it. With that Triple H regime comes high expectations, and it's high risk, high reward. Either you're going to not meet expectations and you're going to go, well, same stuff as always, or you're going to meet it, and then you got to keep building on it. So I think there's a lot of interest behind this. As far as where I'm at, number one being stone cold, no pun intended, and 10 being piping hot, I'm probably right around a 6.5, 7, because there are a lot of things about this pay-per-view that interest me. There are a lot of storylines that I could see this being the nexus of, or the start of, that could really go on to tell some amazing stories. So I'm a little more than half.
Yeah. Now, are you seeing this as a more traditional pay-per-view where once the smoke settles, storylines will be built off of this pay-per-view or continue from this pay-per-view, unlike the Saudi events, where it seems to be like, for those that are listening that might be anime fans, feel like they're non-canon, like they didn't really exist in that moment. Do you feel like that we're going to continue to build storylines off of this pay-per-view, or do you think that this is just one of those one-offs that aren't, going to deliver payoffs in the future?
I think there's a lot of potential to build storylines off of this one, as opposed to a Saudi event, which is, just a flash in the pan. Here it is today, and then it's gone tomorrow. But when you look at the way the matches are set up, you have this thing brewing between Karrion and Drew, and Karrion's also looking at Roman. You have that brewing. You have the return of Bayley, and now she's in a match that also involves the Raw Women's Champion. You have all these things swirling around. Now, I do think there are going to be some matches that aren't going to go into a further storyline, the Sheamus and Walter thing, or Gunther thing. Maybe that'll be a one-off. Maybe it won't be. Maybe Sheamus wins and it does go into something. I think there's a lot of potential to create storylines, and I don't think it's going to be like the Saudi event. I think that would be the worst thing they could do, is try to, like you said, with the Saudi event, here it is right now, and then we're never going to talk about it again.
Yeah. Now, looking at the card, Kevin, is there a particular match that's standing out to you that you're most excited about? You can't say Drew and Roman, because I think that might be a bit too easy of an answer. I want you to analyze that card and sell me on a match and why you're excited for it.
I think if you take out Drew and Roman, you got to go the 6 woman. You have Asuka, you have Bianca Belair, and you have Alexa Bliss on one side. You have Dakota Kai, Io Sky, and Bayley on the other. I was actually having this conversation earlier today, and somebody made the comment that champions should not take the pin in non-title matches, and I think that is farthest from the truth. In non-title matches, that's where the champion needs to take the pin to set up that stuff further down the road. I know the internet is going to go crazy with this, because they always do. I am not a fan of Bianca Belair. I'm just not. She's not what I like to see, and it's for nothing other than I just don't like. I don't really care too much for her. But you have Bayley coming back, and you have Bayley coming back after a very long injury, after a long time away. And Bayley is somebody that the crowd has really gotten behind. Bayley is somebody that can really carry that championship. She's done it time and time again, and she's made it relevant. She's made it interesting, whether it be changing herself or addressing something a different way. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that, as far as, are they going to further this with Bianca and Bayley, and exactly where that story is going to go. And then on the other side, I'm very curious to see what's going to go on with Shayna and Liv, because I think Shayna is well overdue for a singles championship run. So the 2 ladies matches are really, really intriguing me. I think there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of meat on the bone there, and I'm really looking forward to see how that's going to play out. If I can't say Roman and Drew, I'm going with the ladies.
Oh, that's fair. I'll piggyback off of the singles match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I'm very intrigued with what they're doing with Liv Morgan. I was talking with Steve, and I would love to see a Liv Morgan championship run that kind of emulates Daniel Bryan when he held the World Heavyweight Championship, where he somehow kept escaping with the championship when he had to face, Mark Henry, the Big Show, and it was always some sort of circumstance that allowed him to win. I like what they're doing here. Initially, I was very upset with, why are you making her look weak? She's a champion, make her look strong. But then now, as I'm starting to digest everything, I'm like, I'm kind of okay with this. I'm kind of okay with her getting victories on technicalities, because look, this is her beating Ronda Rousey the way that she did at SummerSlam is actually the most realistic result out of the entire show, because no one really, if you look at apples versus apples, no one would think that Liv Morgan could beat the crap out of Ronda Rousey. But it is believable that she walks out of the out of SummerSlam with the title on a technicality. I kind of want to continue to see this as I agree, as overdue as Shayna Baszler is to have a world championship. I want to see Liv Morgan continue to get away with the championship to the point where we might have a little bit of a heel turn. A la the New Day, where they were this happy-go-lucky, cheery team that eventually the fans just slowly turned on them. I kind of want to see that with Liv Morgan, and if it can be this slow, drawn-out thing where we maybe have a heel turn at a Survivor Series or a Royal Rumble, I would love to see that. And we have somebody in charge who is totally okay with doing the slow burn rather than having them pulling the trigger the next night like Vince McMahon tends to do.
Do you think that's throwing Liv Morgan into the deep water too soon?
It can be, but she's can you go deeper in the water than SummerSlam with Ronda Rousey? I think she was already tossed into the deep end as is. I think it's at this point, like, it was one of those situations where you got to sink or swim, Liv, and I thought she was sinking. And now I'm starting to see her float with this uniqueness to her championship reign that we haven't seen. I can't really think of a women's champion like Liv Morgan ever, really, because it's not underhanded tactics that she's winning with, right? She's not cheating. She's not cheating. Technicality and luck. And I think that's very unique, and I want to continue to see that.
See, I'm still on the fence that she's sinking. I'm still on the side that she's sinking, and this was my thing behind it. I was very happy that Liv Morgan won the Money in the Bank, but this is what I wanted to happen. I look at the Money in the Bank almost like a championship. You know, it's something you carry out to the ring. It's something that puts you into the spotlight. Holding that Money in the Bank briefcase has people looking at you different. You're now featured in more main event matches. You're getting more screen time. And I honestly think Liv Morgan would have benefited from holding the briefcase for 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, because then she's put in to those main event matches. She's having to cut promos on a regular basis, because that is my biggest issue with Liv Morgan right now. Every one of her promos to me sounds like insert generic babyface promo here. And if she would have held on to that briefcase and got put in those positions where she could get those reps that I think she desperately needed, I think I would have a much different opinion of Liv Morgan right now. But because she cashed in so quickly, and I know it's not her decision, but because she cashed in so quickly, because she was denied those reps, because she was denied that little extra seasoning, the steak just doesn't taste as good when it got brought to my plate.
I think that's a very fair point. And I was kind of sour on the Liv Morgan situation. I think I might be being a little bit too optimistic, and what I'm hoping for is for them to turn a bad situation into something good. And
wrestling fans, we're all optimists.
Yeah. And my hope is that they take this burning dumpster fire and continue to steer down the road with it. And I want to have it eventually lead into a heel turn. But what I want to see is Liv Morgan just continue to be in her head like, I'm the champion, I'm the best, and refusing to acknowledge that she's winning in these underhanded ways. And I think that could lead to an interesting character. But we'll see. I mean, we're already on the topic here, and why don't we start off with predictions for this particular match, since we've already chatted about it. So we've got Liv Morgan versus Shayna Baszler, singles match for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. At first glance, I don't want you to tell me who you want to win, Kevin. Who do you think will win?
Shayna.
Yeah?
You know, see, you, oh my God, now I know why Steve is always in the hot seat with you. Because you propose this idea, and I can see it happening. I can see them, trying to get her, like, in her head, and everything that you said makes total sense to me, and I didn't think about it that way before I came into the show, but I refuse to be unswayed by the machine that is Santi, and I'm going to stick with Shayna Baszler, but I've got reservations because of you. I'm going with my gut on this. Shayna Baszler for the win. I love that we're going in separate camps. I am going Liv Morgan here. I think they're building
to this shitty, despicable human that refuses to acknowledge that she's winning in underhanded ways. And I think putting her with monsters in the ring, like Shayna Baszler, like Ronda Rousey, is the best way to do this. It really is giving me vibes of 2012 Daniel Bryan. It really, really genuinely is. And I want them to continue with this. Again, I might be telling myself a story here. This might not be what they're going for, but if it is what they're going for, and if it is what they're building, I love it. I fucking love it.
Can I just make one point? Daniel Bryan hit AJ Lee. Liv Morgan's swimming on her own.
Yeah.
If she had somebody there with her, it might be a little bit more believable and more like they're going that direction. But who knows? I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong before. Once again, guys, these are opinions, and that's all they are. But anyway, I'm still going Shayna, but I had to bring up the fact that when Daniel was doing it, he had AJ Lee in there for a little bit. He had no, that was Dolph that had Big E. My bad.
Yeah.
But he had AJ Lee. He had the distraction piece.
Yeah, no, and you're right, and even then, you know, Daniel Bryan had the distraction piece. Liv doesn't. It is different because Daniel Bryan was using underhanded tactics to slay these beasts in the Big Show and Mark Henry. But Liv isn't. It's luck. It literally is luck and technicalities. And that's why I think this is so unique that they could just continue to drive this home into an eventual heel turn in this delusional wannabe face that refuses to acknowledge that she's actually not that good and just keeps winning by luck. That's me being hopeful. And I hope that's where they steer this train. But we'll see. So I'm going.
I wouldn't be mad if it goes that way.
Yeah. I'm being that optimist where again I'm in a situation where life is giving me lemons and I'm really hoping that they make lemonade with it. All right.
No, I got you.
Yeah. Let's stick with the women here. Potential match of the night here. Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka versus Control, Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. I'll jump in first since I made you answer the last one on the hot seat. I have Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky winning here. I think that after them losing the tag team championship match, that they've lost a little bit of that allure, right? The fresh new toy. And I think a loss here would be borderline detrimental to the momentum of Control, not just to the momentum of the faction as a whole, but to the momentum that is Bayley right now, because she is red hot. Everybody wants to see more Bayley. But you gotta have the heels win here. I'm a giant fan of Io Sky. I've been voicing. Steve doesn't watch as much NXT as I have, and I was preaching from the mountaintops that Io Sky, the addition of Io Sky into the main roster, made her, and in terms of in-ring talent, potential top 3 in the main roster. I want to see Io Sky fly. I want them to let her loose. The problem is that, you know, the high flying nature is such a babyface thing that they always calm it down for the heels. They don't let them be as crazy and as high flyers, but I want them to let her loose. And Dakota Kai is a masterful in-ring psychologist. I want to see that as well. I'm going Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky on this one.
I'm right there with you. And for anybody watching, the reason I do the facial expressions I do, I don't want you guys to have to hear, I don't want to cut Santi off and you guys hear us talking over each other. So that's why I try to stay quiet when he's talking. But anyway, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with the winner anyway. We completely disagree on Io Sky, but I agree that they have to win. I will say this. There's a lot of controversy about that loss on Monday, man.
Yeah.
A lot of controversy about Aaliyah pinning the wrong person, the not legal competitor, which I think that they could use to the advantage of Bayley and company. I really do. I do think they need a win here. I think even if she did pin the wrong person, it's still technically a loss because I mean they're not the champions right now. So I don't think they can afford 2 losses in a row. You come in red hot at SummerSlam, you maintain that going through. You have to get a win at some point.
Yeah.
And that point is right now. Also, like I said, I really want a Bianca and Bayley storyline coming out of this. if Bianca gets the win, where's the story at? There's not one, in my opinion. So I think Bayley, not only do they win, but I think Bayley pins Bianca.
That was going to be my question. Who takes the pin?
Maybe with some tactics from the team. But you bring up Dakota Kai's psychology. Dude, that was my biggest issue when she got released. It really was. I think you could put her in any position. And I know you went back and watched the episodes that Steve and I did. I really wanted Dakota Kai to be the real in-life carnation of Alexa's Lily. I thought she would have played that role perfectly. But I do like where she's at now. I like the team that she has now. I think they do complement each other. Even though I'm not the biggest EO fan, I think she has the components that complement her, and I think she is the component that complements the other two. I have Bayley pinning Bianca with a future feud between the two coming out of it.
With the women's tag team titles not being involved in the show, do you think it's a fair assumption that we're not getting Sasha Banks and Naomi at this show? Because if they were to interfere or appear during a match, it would be this one. But now it doesn't make sense because there is no women's, if Control were holding the championships, I could see it. Now I can't. Sorry, say that again.
If they did the finals at Clash,
yeah,
makes total sense. Excuse me. I'm with you. I don't think it makes sense right now. I think if anything, let Aaliyah and Raquel get a couple matches under their belt, maybe let them build up a head of steam, and then they come back if they're still going to be a tag team at all. If they're not going to go back to singles, if they're going to keep them as a tag team, then absolutely 100%. If they're not going to be a tag team, because there were rumors about that for a little bit, that they were going to come back, but they weren't going to be a team anymore. I could see Sasha, if Liv does pull it out, maybe she's there and goes face to face with Liv or something like that. But without the tag titles being on the card, without Control getting the win, I don't think it makes sense. I think you'll be wasting a shot that could potentially be the buzzer beating game winning shot by having them show up anywhere else.
Yeah, and we'll talk about potential rumors and shocks a little bit later on, so I want you to potentially hold on to that thought. But let's move on to the next match, a match that originally for me was lower in my levels of excitement, but has slowly and gradually built up into this crescendo of a potential masterpiece of backstage promos and in-ring work. We have Seth freaking Rollins versus Matt Riddle, a match that was originally supposed to happen at SummerSlam, but rather than pulling the trigger and having this match be happen with only a week of buildup, I think a lot of us were mad at first, but now hindsight being 2020, brilliant fucking move to pull that match from SummerSlam and let these guys actually have a proper build, because this has been a masterclass of build for a pay-per-view, Attitude Era-esque.
No, absolutely, dude. I take much like you do. I take my social media very seriously. And just like you, I stream on Twitch, and I was watching Raw this past week when they did the promo. I don't like being on my phone when I'm live on Twitch or anything, because I feel like if I'm going to ask somebody to come watch my Twitch channel and come support me, it's incredibly disrespectful if I'm doing this the whole time.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I didn't want to be on my phone, but when Seth Rollins dropped that promo, I was like, guys, I'm sorry. I need to record this and post the video right now. I've never had anything do that to me while I was streaming. I'm like, look, I have to do this right now, because I knew it was going to get flooded. I knew every wrestling creator and their mother was going to post that clip. And as you know as well as I do, the money in social media is being the first. So I was like, hey, I got to go and do this. It has been so cool to see what they've done. Going back to what you said at the beginning, the before the show brawl, going to the mild scruff in the parking lot, going to what we thought was just a basic promo, and then they come back from commercial break, and Seth Rollins did this whole words we're not going to use right now, but I think this has really become a focal point of this card because of what these two men have been able to do. And I don't say this often, and I say this with slight reservation, I feel like this needs to be a gimmick match of some kind. I feel like there needs to be a special stipulation because they have made it so personal. This is one of the times where I really wish we still had first blood matches. Because with the level of as personal as they made it, I feel like if we still had first blood matches, that would be the perfect stipulation for something like this. Maybe not the first match right off the bat. Normally, I would say you don't do gimmick matches the first match of the feud, the first match of the series. But with as personal as they have gotten, I feel like if there was going to be a gimmick match, this would have to be it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Honestly, you could put these guys right now in a bra and panties match and I'd be down. Like, that's how excited I am for what they've done. Obviously, I don't want to see a bra and panties match, but I'm with you. I would like to see some sort of gimmick, whether it's no disqualification. This would have been perfect for a Hell in a Cell blow off. Anything. Yeah, falls count anywhere. I mean, they've already, they've set the precedent for a backstage broiler room match, right? Old school Mankind type of match. That being said, I feel like at that point we're nitpicking because the buildup has been so good. Like, if our only criticism is I wish this was a gimmick match, they're killing it. They're absolutely killing it.
They're hunting for stuff to tweak. They're absolutely doing a great job, and I could not agree with what you said more. They have done such a phenomenal build to it. This is probably, like I said, aside from the Roman and Drew thing, this is probably the most heated two competitors are going into this match, and I really, really think they're going to kill it. I think they're absolutely going to smash it.
Yeah, I think the fair way to say is that this is the most main event caliber match outside of Roman versus Drew. Again, and it's to that buildup. And there's a couple of production things that I love when WWE does these subtle nuances that just make you care more. During that Seth Rollins promo, not a single laugh, right? How many times have we seen those Seth Rollins promos where he starts to get personal and then he goes, ha, 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 kind of takes you a little bit out of it. And it reminds you we're in the world of make-believe, in the world of professional wrestling, because no one in a beef, no one in a serious situation will let out a ha, ha, ha. No, they won't. But
no gloves are off.
Yeah, no laugh. Super serious. F-bomb from Riddle. Oh, man. Now I got to put you on the hot seat because this might be the hardest one to predict, Kevin. Who's winning this?
Seth. And I'll tell you why. Seth is, even though, it's in terms of wrestling, as you know, a month might as well be a year. When you separate somebody from something for a month, you might as well have done it for a year. Even though we're so much removed from the 3 matches of Cody, Seth has taken a lot of L's. He hasn't really gotten that nice, good, juicy win. Yes, he beat the Street Profits, but those were impromptu matches on Raw. It's not a match that you sink your teeth into and go, there's something on the line here. And as personal as they made it, this doesn't have to be a title match for us to feel like there's really something on the line here. There's your manhood on the line. Riddle bringing up Becky, Seth bringing up Riddle's divorce. There's got to be a winner here, and I think this is the juicy win that Seth Rollins needs to put him back on track to eventually keep building him and really get back on the road of Seth Rollins that we've come to see. I got to go Seth, but man, I predict this to be snug. I predict this to be hard hitting. There's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be too much fancy stuff in here. I really don't. I don't think we're going to get all the flippy dippy stuff. I think this is going to be 2 guys going in there with one goal in mind, rip the other one's head off. I got Seth getting the win.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Seth situation. I think that this is a win-win for Riddle. In terms of where this is going to position him in the card after this after Clash in the Castle. We taking you back to WrestleMania when it was Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens didn't need that win, and him losing to Stone Cold Steve Austin actually puts him over. I think that Riddle losing to Seth puts Riddle over, and it gives Seth the boost that he needs again to get back into to give him that aura of main event, the threat that is Seth Rollins, the ever looming main eventer, right? I think this is a win-win for both parties if we have Seth Rollins win. I want to see Seth Rollins brutalize Riddle. I think that's what I want to see. I want to see a brutalization of Riddle, and having Riddle be that defiant person constantly coming forward and getting his ass handed to him. That's what I want to see. I want to see a 25-minute match where, the first half of the match is a solid back and forth, and then I want to see Seth Rollins beat the shit out of him. That's what I want to see.
I couldn't agree more. And just to piggyback off what you said, I think this match really has the potential to put Riddle in a whole new light.
Yeah.
Because on one end, you have Seth Rollins, you have somebody who is an established main eventer, somebody who's beaten Drew, beaten Roman in the past, beaten Brock Lesnar, multi-time world champion, and then you have Riddle, who's done none of that, but he's going to go in here and he's going to hang toe-to-toe, and he's going to push him to his limit, and he's going to keep pushing forward. And even if Seth brutalizes him at the end or constantly just on top of him, we're going to leave this match going, Riddle hung with a guy who beat Brock Lesnar multiple times. Riddle just hung with a guy who's former Money in the Bank, former Rumble winner. Riddle is that guy now.
Yeah.
So I think this match sets Riddle up to be seen in a whole new light, and I think it's what he needs. He doesn't need the win because he's going to, like you said, he's going to win if he loses.
Yeah. And you know what? Riddle owes everything to Triple H right now, because we wouldn't be having this conversation. This would not be a win-win if they had their match at SummerSlam, because let's say Rollins wins that SummerSlam match and then they have another match here at Clash in the Castle. The conversation is different. The conversation is now, well, if Riddle wins, Seth loses that steam. And if Seth wins, now that's back-to-back losses for Riddle and he's getting buried. I think canceling that SummerSlam match was such a brilliant decision, a moment of clarity by the WWE to acknowledge that they did not have a proper buildup for a money match. And now they've got that money match with a proper build. And I couldn't commend the WWE more for their decision to cancel this at SummerSlam.
That match happens at SummerSlam, it completely changes the narrative.
Yeah.
Because then it's not this personal blood feud that we've gotten. It's, oh, well, I beat you, now you have to beat me. Or I already beat you, why do I need a rematch? Or it's somebody playing catch up. It completely changes the narrative. And the narrative that they've written is what has hooked us so deeply. So could not agree with you more.
All right, let's move on here to potentially the match I'm most excited for, in ring. So Kevin, I'm a big fan of big meaty men slapping each other. All right. Those are some of my favorite match. I call those the meat slappers. And this might be quite literal meat slappers in Gunther versus Sheamus for the Intercontinental Championship. A couple things that I want to lay the groundwork for here. We've got two European guys in front of a hot European crowd. The crowd's going to be hot for these guys. But hot for Sheamus because it's more in his backyard than Gunther's. But I think both of these guys are going to get a resounding ovation from the crowd in Cardiff. Two, this is I believe the first time since WrestleMania SmackDown that we've seen the Intercontinental Championship defended in some sort of pay-per-view. Now, Steve and I were talking about this. The rumor mill, and there's nothing that was ever confirmed, was that Fox was not okay with the IC championship being defended on anything Peacock. Fox wanted a championship that was exclusive to Fox, and that was the Intercontinental Championship. And that's why every title defense happened on Fox on Friday Night SmackDown to some capacity. So this is the first time in a very long time that we've had the Intercontinental Championship defended on Peacock. The way that they have turned around the Intercontinental Championship boggles my mind. This went from a participation ribbon to potentially the most prestigious title on a week-to-week basis when Roman isn't on TV, right? I was telling Steve, yeah, Gunther gives me final boss vibes.
Absolutely.
If you're into video games and you know what I'm talking about, Gunther is a final boss, and he's turned the Intercontinental Championship into a prize worth fighting for. And having a future Hall of Famer, multi-time world champion, Money in the Bank winner, Royal Rumble winner in Sheamus, one is a huge way to justify Gunther as a threat on the main roster, is another great way to elevate the Intercontinental Championship, and it's a great way for me to give a shit about this match. Like, I think, again, this is another combination of great booking and a great sequence of protection of Gunther, because when he first joined that main roster, I think he lost that allure that he had, this danger that he had about him. Even when they changed his theme song, it just didn't feel as dangerous, right? Not having Imperium with him, every member of Imperium with him.
But that's the ring general vibe.
Yeah. And they've done a great job of rebuilding that to the point where I think this might be one of the scariest versions of Walter Gunther that we've seen in a really, really long time. Not Ilya Dragunov versus Walter vibes yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And I think that this is such a great stepping stone for Gunther. And I think we might be different here. I'm saying Gunther is walking out with the championship here. And I think this is where they go with classic WWE vibes, where they have the hometown boy lose.
So we're talking about the Intercontinental Championship. As you can see, guys, there are a lot of belts behind me.
Yeah, for audio listeners, come to the YouTube version. You'll see he's not exaggerating. I'm counting around 9 belts back there, just from what I can see.
There are 8 on each shelf. There are 2 on this main shelf behind me. And there's about 6 on the floor over here that I don't have room for. But the point I'm trying to make is there's all these belts behind me. There's one belt that sits next to me. There's one belt that sits next to me. I'm so excited for this match. I love the Intercontinental Championship. I think what you said hits the nail right on the head. They've turned it around. They're recreating that workhorse title vibe. I agree with you what happened with Gunther when he come over to the main roster. He kind of lost that ring general. Maybe he's the ring private now or the ring sergeant now, but he's not the ring general. He's not the ring general. But he's really starting to step back into that light. We have 2 men here who are not afraid to be physical. We have 2 men here who can get punched in the face and say, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" And I'm so looking forward to it. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm also going Gunther.
Okay.
I think Gunther is the perfect person to continue to reestablish the Intercontinental Championship. I think he's the perfect person to re-add credibility to it. And what Gunther does with what he's doing right now is, if he keeps beating these guys, much like with what Roman's doing right now, it sets up whoever is the one to dethrone him. It immediately skyrockets them because they dethrone the guy that nobody was able to dethrone, or they dethrone the guy who looked so dominant. So I really like what they're doing. I'm going Gunther. The only other thing I want to add to this is when they had the fatal 4-way, fatal 5-way to crown the number 1 contender, it was in Canada. And everybody on the internet was saying, "Oh, they should have gave it to Sammy. They should have let it be Sammy. They should have Okay, Sammy makes sense for where that match took place, where the qualifying match took place, because it was in Canada. But who made the most sense for where that title match takes place? And it's Sheamus. And I look at this and, like you said, it's just 2 big meat-slapping men. 2 men who aren't afraid to be physical. I think this match is going to be physical as all get out. And I think it's really going to do a lot for the Intercontinental title, because it's going to show these 2 men are willing to do this for that prize. This is something we need to respect.
Yeah, chests are going to be red, my friend. Now, I a little bit of a side topic here, because this was a discussion I was having earlier with a friend of mine at work. Do you feel that and again, this is me telling myself stories and assumptions, but do you feel like they're using Gunther now as the prototype to show people from NXT or even people in AEW, hey, we can treat indie darlings right now. We can treat them right. You can have a positive, good career here in the WWE. Look what we've done with Cody Rhodes. Look what we've done with Gunther. Don't be afraid to come to the WWE in the main roster, because you can have a fantastic career. It's no longer just about the established WWE guys. You can be a new name and make a name for yourself. Am I reading too deep into that?
I don't think it's a focal point. I don't think it's something that they sit down in board meetings and talk about. But it definitely does exactly that. Because, I mean, you look at, Pete Dunne had amazing success as UK champion. What's he doing now? You look at Ricochet, amazing North American champion. What's he doing now? And not to say that these guys aren't doing good, but they're not living their NXT days.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that you're looking too far into it. I think it does absolutely do that. Like, just because you go from NXT to the main roster, because at one point, Tommaso Ciampa made it very clear, I would rather retire than go to the main roster. He was one of the loudest voices about that, but here he is. So I do think it provides that extra reassurance that just because you're an indie guy, just because you come from NXT, doesn't mean you're going to get put in some cartoon gimmick that nobody's going to care about in 2 weeks. It provides that, but I don't think it's a focal point that they focus on.
Yeah, I bring this up because it's like a tale of two halves, because he was brought up during the same time that Butch was brought up, and no pun intended, they butchered him. All right, same time as LA Knight was brought up, completely repackaged him and completely changed him. That is a travesty that maybe we should talk about, but it hurts. It does hurt. It does hurt. As funny as I do find Maximum Male Models, it shouldn't be LA Knight. It shouldn't be. He's too good for this. Kevin, jump in. I feel you want to jump in here.
I so want to jump in, Santi. I so want to jump in, but I want to be respectful to the show. I don't want to kind of overtake, so I was waiting for the invite. You gave it. Thank you. I'm going to kick my shoes off at the door because I'm going to stay a while. If you guys don't know Eli Drake from Impact, so good on the mic, phenomenal wrestler. The Gravy Train was one of my favorite moves ever. And you go back to his talk show and his catchphrase, dummy. Yeah, loved every bit of it. The man's phenomenal on the microphone. He's phenomenal in the ring. LA Knight, didn't like the name, but his feud with Cameron Grimes over the $1 million title, chef's kiss.
Yes.
It was amazing. I loved it. And then he had Cameron as his butler, and it was just so cool and so awesome. And then we get, I forget exactly what I was watching. I think it was with the Intercontinental title, but I was watching an episode of SmackDown in the Intercontinental Championship. It was featured, I think it was right before Gunther won or right after he won, but something big was going on. It was something that they were really focusing on. And, it was the main event. But their main event got 10 minutes, but Maxim Male Models got 23 minutes. How does that make sense? It's a complete waste of Eli Drake, LA Knight, whatever you want to call him, what you want, but let him go back to wrestling, please. Yeah. Please let him go back to wrestling. Give him a microphone where he's not talking about male models. It's it's wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
Because let's say I could see him having great matches with so many people. Drew, Sheamus, Ricochet, so many people he would have amazing matches with. And it's just a shame that we're not getting it. If you guys have not seen Eli Drake from TNA, go watch it. You will thank me later.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad that you talked about the history of Eli Drake and just how good Eli Drake, LA Knight was. And it kind of goes to the point that I was trying to make, which is, you have these guys who are so good that are being treated like absolute dog shit in the main roster. Mm-hmm. But and Gunther, by all reports, that's the way they were going with him. They were going to treat him like dog shit and completely bury him to the point where, if you recall, there was that tweet from Keith Lee saying, "Oh my God, if the rumors are true about Walter, more or less like, oh dear God." So we everybody that they were bringing up from NXT in this like 7-month stretch was just doomed. And now we have Walter coming out of that, Phoenix rising from the ashes and turning into not necessarily the main event, but a main event, because SmackDown isn't always going to have Roman Reigns. So is he that beacon of light for those?
Play devil's advocate?
Sorry?
I was going to say, can I play devil's advocate to your point?
Go ahead.
He very well could be, but do you think it hurts him? The fact that it's Walter, a big, strong Vince McMahon ideal kind of character, but then you have the smaller guys like Ricochet and Butch and all these other not massive human beings. Do you think it still gives that stigma that because he is one of the only ones that unless you're 6'8" and jacked to the moon, this is what happens?
And you know what? You bring up a fair point, and maybe we should revisit this in 6 months, because maybe the prototype for this isn't Gunther, it's Johnny Gargano. So what they do with Gargano will be a true telling of how they're going to treat those smaller guys coming up from NXT and maybe jumping over from AEW.
There's also an Easter egg on NXT. Did you watch NXT this week?
No, I missed it. What was the Easter egg?
So I told you the former champions, they all came and talked to the current champions.
I saw those clips, but I didn't watch the whole episode, so I might have missed the Easter egg.
Pete Dunne talking to Tyler Bate?
Yes.
Was he dressed up as Butch?
Mm-mm.
Did they ever call him Butch?
Yeah.
I might be looking too far into it, Santi.
Yeah.
But there might be some Easter eggs there. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Clash of the Castle. Let's get back on track here.
We could do this for hours, brother.
Yeah, but you know what? We sidetracked where we should sidetrack, because next, unfortunately, look, the names in this match are phenomenal, but I think this is the bathroom break match. I hate to say this because it's got two of my favorites of all time, Edge and Rey Mysterio. By the way, one of the greatest tag teams of the SmackDown era. If y'all remember the SmackDown 6, Rey Mysterio and Edge, chef's kiss. Versus the Judgment Day, we're getting Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Of course, I'm sure we'll get shenanigans from Rhea Ripley, Dominic Mysterio, but I don't care, Kevin. I don't care. I love every performer in this match.
Absolutely.
Damian Priest has impressed me to the moon recently with his backstage segments, with his in-ring work. The match he had with Edge was absolutely killer. I love that they're bringing the aura back of the Prince with Finn Balor, new music, new Titantron in the back. They're making me care, and yet I still don't. And yet I still don't. I'm
right. I don't want to say I don't want to say that I don't care, because there are two things that I'm looking forward to. There's two things that
Rhea Ripley putting somebody in a head scissor?
Well, I'm not going to be in Cardiff, so no. But anyway, I think we're going to have to save these 2 points for when we talk about rumors. Yes. I do believe that this will be the bathroom break. I do believe that it's not going to be anything we haven't seen before, but there are two things we're going to say for the rumor part that I will go into, and if one of these things happen, I care.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. We'll talk about rumors here in just a second, but this match seems more so like kindling for something bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the names that are in it. Right? If this was, anyone else aside from, like, Edge is in this, all right? Like, Edge being in this is massive, okay? That's why I think this is a stepping stone to something bigger, a bigger reveal, a new member of Judgment Day, something. Because otherwise, they wouldn't waste Edge on this. But yet, here we are, and the match might end up being fantastic. But again, it just, even though we haven't technically gotten this exact match, it still feels like we have, right?
We got variations of it.
Yeah, we've gotten variations of it, so it doesn't feel like this is new in any way, shape, or form. So my excitement for this match really comes for whatever might happen during or after this match. But my pick here is I'll go Judgment Day with Mysterio taking the pin.
I'll go Judgment Day.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about why later.
All right, we will. But now let's get into the main event. We've got God Mode, the Tribal Chief, the big dog, Roman Reigns going in as the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Yes, folks, that is still the name of the title. It's a mouthful, but that's what it is. Versus not quite hometown, but a stone's throw away in Drew McIntyre.
I like that, a stone's throw away.
My God, like this is one of the first times where I could see Roman losing. Now, we can talk a little bit more about this, but I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about Drew McIntyre finally getting the big stage main event match that he was robbed from because of the pandemic, right? If he wins, man, this will be the potentially one of the loudest pops in WWE history. And
Tricks from his championship reign. He was championship, but it was the pandemic.
Yeah. It almost feels like it didn't quite happen. He didn't get the payoff that somebody of the caliber of Drew McIntyre deserves, right?
Absolutely.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they are doing the classic thing that WWE used to do really well in the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, which is bring up a former wrestler's struggles and use that towards his build towards a potential giant payoff. The last time I remember them doing this really, really well was Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar. The struggles of Eddie Guerrero with getting fired from the WWE, that got brought up a bunch of times. His issue with substance abuse.
That is my favorite moment in WWE history.
And they used it all perfectly into this buildup of this literally David versus Goliath. And we got the beautiful pop and celebration. I almost feel like this is what they're setting us up for. Drew McIntyre acknowledging his days as the chosen one, acknowledging that he's been fired, how he had to claw and come back to this point. It almost feels poetic. It almost feels right. It almost feels as if they need to give the title to Drew McIntyre. As much as I love Roman Reigns, Kevin, before Straight Shoot really took off, before we had more than 10 viewers on our podcast, I said to Steve, I want Roman to hold the title for 2 years. And we're at that moment. He wasn't with me at that time. And as time went on, he's just like, you know what? I do want that Bruno Sammartino type lengthy reign for Roman Reigns. And we've got it. He crossed that 2-year mark. It's time. It's time, Kevin. It's time. What do you think?
You know, I think a lot set up. One of the things that I'm really clinging to is, do you remember the clip that went viral of Roman in Madison Square Garden where he says, I don't know if I'm going to come back here?
Yes.
So I feel like that plays something into it. I feel like the way that they built Drew, like you said, and it's funny that you bring up the Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar thing. I just watched that promo as I was cooking dinner for the kids. That is hands down my favorite moment in WWE history, was the I'm an Addict promo. It was so real. It was so personal. It added so many more layers to that match. And I can feel it now. I didn't make the connect before you said it, but I feel it. But I did get the feeling that this is one of the times where Roman has to lose. Excuse me. I do think Drew deserves this win. I think, like I said, there's this really big smudge on Drew McIntyre's title reign that he does not deserve. There's this big asterisk. There's this big, what if the fans were there? What if they had actual crowd reaction? Would they have still thought he was over? He has the opportunity to wipe all of that clean. He has the opportunity to grab the reins, no pun intended, and really run with this thing. I'm right there with you, man. I've enjoyed the title run. I think Roman has done amazing in the positions he's been put in. He's made banger matches out of people that I didn't think could have banger matches. But I think it's Drew's time. I think it's Drew's time.
All right. So now let's get real. Because even though I've talked about how much I want Drew to win, and you just did the same thing, yes. These are predictions on who we think will win. Because now I'm going to do a 360, and I'm going to tell you that I think Roman Reigns wins. I still think Roman Reigns walks out with the title. I think that that they're keeping the titles on him for another WrestleMania. As much as I want it to be Drew McIntyre, and their setup for it has been perfect, I still don't think WWE has the balls to take the title off Roman right now.
I think Drew pins Theory to win.
Ooh, you think we have some Theory shenanigans?
Here's why.
Lay 'em on me.
I think Theory tries to pull Heist of the Century and tries to make it a triple threat match. He cashes in. The cash in is successful. He looks like he's going to get it. Claymore out of nowhere. Drew wins because honestly at this point, Santi, I think because of the way Roman has been, one, this gets the title off Roman without him taking a pin or a submission. And I think that's the real stakes right there. Who's going to be the one to pin Roman? He doesn't need the titles for that. He doesn't need it. It still makes him look dominant because he didn't take the pin. And the question still is, Roman hasn't been pinned or made submit in over 2 years. Who's going to be the guy to do it? And I think he carries that into WrestleMania, which is the equivalent of a title because he hasn't lost. He takes this undefeated run, this amazing run into Mania. Who's going to knock it off there? But I think Theory's going to cash in. I think it's going to become a triple threat. I think Drew pins Theory, wins the belts. Roman still has this claim that I'm the unbeaten tribal chief. He might have the belts, but he doesn't have my title. Because my title is the fact that I haven't been pinned or tapped in 2+ years. Who's taking that one from me?
Kevin, that's fucking brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. That is a genius idea for them to get out of this potential handcuff that they have, which is do you give Drew his moment? Do you end the hot streak of Roman Reigns? And I think you found the why not both? Why can't we make everyone happy here? I think that is a brilliant idea, and if that is the way that it goes, my man, you need to scream from the mountaintops that you thought of it, because I think that
the lottery, right?
What's that?
I'm going to have to go play the lottery. If I call that, I'm lucky to play the lottery.
Yeah. No, you know what? Now that's exactly how I wanted to play out. That I had the idea of maybe like Theory comes in, it becomes a triple threat match for one of the titles, and then he gets away with one of the titles, and then Drew gets the other one. That's how they split them. But no, that doesn't make sense now that you've laid this scenario out. I love it.
It takes the briefcase off Theory. It allows him to explore this avenue with Johnny. It allows Roman to still look dominant and explore this. I'm unbeaten for 2+ years. It lets Drew go over here and do something with Karrion. There's been rumors about splitting the titles. Maybe Karrion takes one. Now we have champions on both brands again. I feel like there is so much potential coming out of it this way, and this could just be, my fantasy booking. But I honestly think that's the way I want it to go.
Yeah.
I don't think. Maybe it goes that way, maybe it doesn't. This is what I want.
Yeah, and I'm completely on board. Now that's what I want. It's like when a little kid is playing with something and then he sees another kid playing with something else and like, no, now I want that toy. That's what you did to me.
You just did with your Liv Morgan opinion in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. We're even now. What I will say, and you brought up a great point, like the allure of Roman and his inability to be beaten is a title in itself, and Roman has gotten to that point now where he's on that tier with the John Cena's, the Undertakers, the Stone Colds, the Rocks, and what I mean by that is relax, wrestling fans. I'm not saying he's up there in the Mount Rushmore or whatever. What I mean is he doesn't need the title to be a main event. He doesn't need it. He does not need the title to be the main event because Roman is the final boss of the WWE. We talked about this.
The titles at this point.
Yeah. The titles are irrelevant at this point. The journey for the babyface is, it doesn't have to be winning the championship. It can be dethroning Roman, and that in its own is capable of being a good enough reason to main event one of the nights of WrestleMania.
What adds to the layer of that, in my opinion, is if this is what happens, I feel like people will start to look at Roman's 2-year unpinned streak much like they looked at Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. And when you think about it, who's one of the only 2 men to pin Undertaker at WrestleMania?
Yeah, Roman and Brock.
It kind of he can be like, you know, you guys might not like the fact that people are comparing this to the streak, but an undisputable fact is I'm one of the only people to pin him at WrestleMania. Therefore, this makes it more important than the streak. And he can play that heel. He can play that heel side of it. I think this is a win-win for everybody involved. I think it sets up for incredible storylines moving forward. And it still lets Roman walk into another WrestleMania as the guy, even though he is not the champion.
Dude, I absolutely love it. But let's shift gears here, and let's end this episode of Clash at the Castle with maybe talking some wish list items or potential rumors that you want to come through. We were already kind of talking about one of those before we hit the record button here. Kevin, lay down the ground floor for us as to what you think, you know, could be one of those big returns or big reveals during Clash of the Castle.
So I want to, before we get to the one we were talking about before we hit record, I want to go back to the Judgment Day Edge and Mysterio match.
Sure.
Two things that I would really like to see, and I don't mean to sound like every wrestling fan on the internet, but the reason I have Judgment Day pinning Rey Mysterio is because I do think Dominic turns. I would love to see a Dominic turn and Dominic to be in the Judgment Day. I'm not the biggest fan of Dominic, but when you look at everything that Dominic has done since Edge has come in, he has had a problem with it since the start. Even going back to this past episode of Monday Night Raw, he said, "Dad, I thought it was going to be me and you." And Ray goes, "I need that experience. I need that guy who's been here before." Pretty much telling his kid, "You ain't up to par." It's a tough pill to swallow. Maybe that's the one thing that sets Dominic over the edge. And right when it looks like Ray's going to get the win, Dominic comes in and, "You're not my dad anyway. Eddie is." Pow! And it's the Judgment Day now. So that's one avenue I would like to maybe see play out. Another thing is you have you have Ray and you have Edge, and then you have Baszler and you have Damian. Who's been the thorn in the side? Who's been the difference maker? You have Rhea. What if Beth is there? What if out of nowhere Beth comes out? What if out of nowhere Rhea looks like she's going to get involved, and all of a sudden Beth comes in and it sets up something with Rhea and Beth? I could really buy into that. I was a big Beth Phoenix fan. Still am. I think she's looked great the few times she has come back, and I would not mind seeing, you know, Rhea and Beth have some kind of spin-off from this, if not getting a Dominic turn. So those are the two rumors I was talking about with that match. What do you think of those two?
I love them both. Again, those are things that make sense, that add to the storyline. So I'm gonna send one back your way, and we're gonna talk a little bit about Liv Morgan and Shayna Baszler, because I'm already thinking of the ways that Liv Morgan can win by technicalities, and I do see some sort of misunderstanding between Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler happening at this match. You know, we already had the little confrontation when Shayna Baszler was going into the ring between her and Ronda Rousey, maybe setting something a little bit there. You know, the friends at odds. I would like to see Ronda Rousey at the show. Ronda Rousey has been feeling like the true Ronda Rousey that we should have gotten from the get-go. She feels like UFC Ronda Rousey. So I think it would be a miss to not have Ronda Rousey in some way, shape, or form in the show. And if we do have her on the show, I know you said potentially Sasha Banks coming in and confronting Liv Morgan after she wins. I just don't think that makes sense just yet. I think that Sasha Banks needs to come back into... And maybe in some sort of anti-WWE gimmick or shtick. I don't know.
Attribution!
Yeah. Oh, God. No. Oh, God. She was the hacker all along. But I would like to see some sort of Ronda Rousey appearance in the Liv Morgan Shayna Baszler match, which leads again to some sort of technicality, not underhanded, not cheating, technicality and luck win by Liv Morgan. Again, if that's the plan, I want them to continue with it. I want them to turn Liv Morgan into the most unlikable babyface in the history of WWE.
So what about something like this, man? I love talking to other wrestling fans. I really do. It's one of the reasons I do this for a living now. And my thing is, whenever I hear a wrestling fan talk, things are just running through my head. What kind of underhanded, not cheating, but underhanded tactics can we use? Ronda comes out, because the altercation between Shayna and Ronda was, we don't do this here. These are things we don't do here. What if she comes out? What if she looks like she's going after Liv, and Shayna gets in the way, and Shayna's like, you're going to cause me disqualification. I got to get you out of here. She goes to shove her, and off that shove, Liv catches an elbow from Ronda, therefore disqualifying Shayna because Liv got hit. There's a lot of ways they could play this, and I would love. I hate the fact that you got me on the Liv train. I hate it. I'm not completely on board, but I'm hanging on to the rail, not wanting to miss my stop.
Yeah, I mean, I've got you on the hook. We just need to pull a little bit more. What I would have liked to see, and unfortunately it's not going to happen, but I would have loved to see Shayna go into the match with her arm brace, because they were playing up the arm injury and she had the arm brace, and I would have loved to see Shayna Baszler, is kicking her ass, and then something happens where she goes for an armbar or something, and then it causes the brace to slip out and causes some shenanigans that way into a roll up. That's what I mean by these, that it's not cheating. I don't like the idea of the disqualification, because it doesn't go with the moniker of her winning. I want her to win. I want there to be a 3 count that in the minds of fans and in the minds of the opponent is complete bullshit. That's what I would like to see, and I would like to see Ronda Rousey causing another bullshit victory for Liv Morgan. So that's kind of my wish list hopeful item that I'd like to see throughout here. My other one is, I would like to see an interference, even though this isn't his style, Gunther, the ring general. I would like to see an interference of all of Imperium. I would like Imperium to be called up to the main roster, because Sheamus has the Brawling Brutes with him, and Gunther only has Kaiser.
Match. I thought you were showing the women's. I'm like, why would Gunther involve himself in the women's match?
No. We're on Gunther and Sheamus now. My last wish list item, because again, where they are and how they dominated NXT UK, I would like to see a full call up of everyone from Imperium, with the exception of Wolf, because I don't even think he's in the WWE anymore. But I would like to see Imperium be brought into the fold, and this is the perfect venue for it.
That was going to be my only caveat, was I could care less about Wolf. And that really sets up with the way Gunther carries himself and carries his squad. It really puts a viable contender against the Usos. The only other thing that I would like, or kind of fantasy booking, is the way this thing's going down with Kevin Owens and Sammy, have them eventually reunite and take the titles off the Usos. But you call up Imperium, you have them come back, and they really are the standard of excellence, or that's how they portray themselves. I think it's brilliant. I really do. I was always a big fan of Imperium. I was one of the few guys who, when NXT was in its glory day, my 2 favorite tag teams were the Grizzled Young Vets and Imperium. I love the way they work.
That is a not so common answer for a favorite tag team from NXT, the Grizzled Young Vets. I love them, but you had so many options. The Grizzled Young Vets, really?
I'm a Harley Race fan, man.
Right. Okay.
Of that Smash Mouth, nothing, the FTR kind of style. I love the Grizzled Young Vets, and I loved Imperium, and I thought if they ever got together, they would absolutely smash each other.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on there. But let's talk rumors, and let's wrap this up. The big rumor, Kevin, and potentially the best place to bring this individual back outside of maybe the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, because let's face it, Survivor Series sucks, people. I don't want big returns to be wasted on Survivor Series. The Fiend. Lot of rumors. And there is the precedent now set in place by Bayley, Io Sky, and Dakota Kai for big returns at pay-per-views, right? That's not something that the WWE has been doing recently. In fact, the WWE hasn't really been doing shock returns because they always announce them the week before, right? They do the vignette of like, this person is returning this week, or this person debuting, or Veer is coming in 8 months from now, right? Like there weren't shocks or surprises. The shock at SummerSlam set the precedent that you can now have shocks not just on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. You can have shock returns at big pay-per-views. This is a big pay-per-view. Mind you, it's back-to-back big pay-per-views, but the precedent is there to bring back a big name. And I think you and I are in agreement. Sasha Banks doesn't make sense at this pay-per-view. That really just leaves The Fiend.
It does, and I'm going to go back to what you said. We're no longer just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. We have viable evidence to support, okay, they do bring people back at pay-per-views. They can do shock reviews. Insert Bayley, insert Karrion Kross, insert Johnny Gargano. We have people coming back to WWE that we didn't think were coming back. Johnny Gargano said he was done. Johnny Gargano didn't want to come back. He said that on his Twitch channel numerous times, but here he is. So there's something appealing now that wasn't appealing then, which, and I was one of the loudest voices on this. I don't think The Fiend's ever going to come back. He's not going to be treated right. They don't know what to do with him creatively. There's going to be all these hoops he's got to jump through. And why would he ever come back? But now we see all these people coming back. Why can't it be The Fiend? Why can't it? And when you think of the things that The Fiend does and the character that he is, he required, and I'm not trying to make this a money thing, but he requires a big budget for his vignettes, for his skits. The biggest budget there is WWE. I'm an AEW fan. I'm an Impact fan. I'm a wrestling fan. But when you look at the way things have changed under Triple H and everybody who said they wouldn't come back, but now they're back. I talked to Karrion Kross personally, WrestleMania weekend. I'm friends with one. We have a mutual friend, and I got to talk to him personally. And I asked him, he could have been working me. I asked him, do you think he'll ever go back to WWE? He said, no way. He didn't like the way they treated his wife when he went to Raw. We see that's changed. And I think there's so many possibilities for it. I think if he was going to come back, we have the most evidence that he is coming back now. Or not really the most evidence because nothing's really concrete. It's just rumors at this point. But there's a buzz, Santi. And when I say buzz, there is a freaking buzz. And I love it, and I'm tapping into that energy. And I think this is awesome. I think it's going to be the great place to bring him back. I think it sets up so much moving forward just in time for Survivor Series being a big forward, just in time for the Rumble, Mania. And it would just be awesome, and I think it's a great time to do it.
There's nothing like seeing a Fiend entrance,
No.
Kevin. I'm a lucky participant of being near the front at SummerSlam 2019 in Toronto, and I got to see the debut of the Fiend. And thinking about that entrance gives me goosebumps. And that was in a Coliseum of 20,000 people. Imagine the Fiend entrance in the middle of the night, surrounded by 80,000+ drunk Europeans going ballistic at the return of the Fiend.
It's been since they were in Cardiff?
What's that?
Like, how long's it been since they were in Cardiff?
Oh, dude, a lifetime, an entire lifetime, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to say welcome back to Cardiff, to give the people in Cardiff something to hold on to and something to say. We might not be able to experience WWE as much as people in Chicago and Atlanta and in the States. But when we experienced WWE, we got the Fiend.
Yeah. And it's heaven. We need this. We need this. We need this. Like if we look at the card as is on paper, it's not that it's not exciting. It's that it almost doesn't feel adequate for a giant stadium, right? There's a
lot to be desired.
Yes, there's not that many matches, and this is apparently a 4+ hour show, a la WrestleMania. There needs to be something that needs to be talked about, and yeah, that might end up being the world talking about Roman Reigns losing the titles. But there needs to be something that leaves people walking away from this pay-per-view wanting to turn on Monday Night Raw. right?
Absolutely.
The very next day. And I think that's the Fiend. I really think that that's the Fiend. I think it would be, I've been, I've voiced this numerous times. I think Bray Wyatt would be colossally stupid to go anywhere except the WWE. If he thinks that WWE didn't treat the Fiend right, the other companies, it's not that they wouldn't want to treat him right, it's that they physically, monetarily cannot. They can't. They cannot do the Fiend justice. Right up to the two biggest players outside of WWE, New Japan and AEW, they just cannot make the Fiend work. I really believe that they cannot make the Fiend work. That being said, I sympathize with Bray Wyatt not wanting to work for Vince McMahon because, if you don't like working for your boss, then you don't want to fucking work there. But the story and the narrative is different now. People want to work for the WWE. People want him to return back to the WWE because
there's hope in the WWE.
Yeah, because 8 months ago, people didn't want him to go back to the WWE. People wanted him in AEW. I don't think any reasonable wrestling fan can sit here and argue with me that right now he's better off in AEW. He's not. No. In terms of the production that WWE can offer the Fiend, it's comparing the Empire State Building to a fucking Amazon box, all right? In terms of what the WWE can do in terms of production compared to other organizations. But now, the thorn on the side of Bray Wyatt is gone. He has no reason to not sign with the WWE. And if he wants to make a splash, baby, this is the place. This is the place.
No, I completely agree. And I'm an AEW fan. Like I said, I'm a wrestling fan. I enjoy all wrestling. But when you look at AEW, one of the biggest issues fans have is how long we go without seeing a certain character. How many times or how long is this person going to be off TV before you see him again? You add the Fiend, they're always going to have Omega. They're always going to have the Bucks. They're always going to have Hangman. Where does he fit? Where is his time slot? Where is his big match? And if you add him, who are you kicking out of their spot to do it? WWE has the time for it. WWE has the funding for it. WWE has the right person in creative for it. And like you said, the one thorn he had is gone. So there's a perfect fit for the Fiend in WWE. I personally I was more of if he doesn't go back to Impact or if he doesn't go back to WWE, I hope Impact can afford him because I think they would have benefited tremendously from him. I was never for him going to AEW, even though I love AEW, but still, it's just facts. And I think the only place that can sustain the Fiend and give him what he needs and really create this character that we know he can be, there's nowhere other than WWE.
Yeah, and I'll add this just before we start to wrap things up. This is a plea to the WWE. WWE, if you do get the Fiend back, don't put him in the title picture. Dude doesn't need a title. He doesn't need a title. It doesn't make sense for this demigod being from another alternate dimension to want gold. It doesn't make sense. The Fiend is good enough to run storylines and main events with just the desire to need to beat the Fiend or whatever, right? He doesn't need the titles. Keep him away from the titles, please. And don't feed him to Goldberg again. You know what? Bad WWE. Never do that again. That was sacrilegious. Kevin, we're going to wrap it up here. Where can people find you?
So I'll make this real quick and super simple for you. I am Heel Kevin everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. The two places I'm most active are TikTok, Heel Kevin 1 on TikTok. And I am live every single weekday on Twitch. I go live twice a day, every weekday, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And then again at 7:25 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Every day, twice a day, or every weekday, twice a day. We do Monday Night Raw watch-alongs, AEW, Rampage. Any wrestling, we're watching it. So if you want to watch wrestling with a bunch of really cool wrestling fans and bounce ideas off like Santi and I have done for over an hour now, twitch.tv/HeelKevin, the place for you. We're going to be live this weekend streaming every single wrestling show, all three of them. All three shows we're going to be live for this weekend. And then, like I said, every weekday, twice a day, 8 a.m. and 7:25 p.m. on Twitch. Twitch.tv/HeelKevin.
Folks, I encourage you to go check them out. The links to all of Kevin's social media platforms will be down in the description of this video.
Yeah, I got links.
Yeah. He gets my personal stamp of approval, so definitely go check him out. Twitch.tv/ what is it? Heel Kevin.
Twitch is the only place that is Heel Kevin. Everywhere else is Heel Kevin 1. Because apparently, Santi, somebody stole my name on Twitch. I can't be Heel Kevin 1 on Twitch. So it's Heel Kevin on Twitch, and everywhere else is Heel Kevin 1.
All right. Well, folks, thank you very much for watching. If you are watching the YouTube version of the podcast, make sure to leave it a like, a comment, and of course, check out the description to check out Kevin. If you are listening to podcast services around the globe, whether that's Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, and apparently we're on Audible. I don't know why the fuck you're listening on Audible, but if you are, thank you very much. If there is the ability to leave a rating of any way, shape, or form on those podcast platforms, I know Spotify, you can leave 5 stars. Please do so. It helps us out tremendously. It helps us in terms of getting more viewership. Our podcast has recently passed Rene Dupree's podcast. Take that, you French idiot. Our podcast is better than yours.
Oui.
Oui. Thank you guys very much for watching. Take care. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us, Kevin.
See you guys.